should mark this like
Factoring out the blob, GC.
So, well, I just know I have to be between all this writing. So, guys, why you guys? This is a lecture. This is a video. It's running right now. So this is not going to take very long. But so at this point now, you know how to factor out the greatest common factor, right? What if the greatest common factor is a blob?
What's a blob?
Right?
I love blobs.
Okay, so let's say I had this problem. This will be my first problem. How about 5x parenthesis blob
What?
minus 2 parenthesis blob? Okay? So that's our first problem. Do you see something, if I'm being asked to factor out the greatest common factor, do you see a factor or something that's the same in both terms?
They both have blob.
Oh my God!
I said it first.
You're right. Una said it first.
Oh.
All right, Una said it first. So you're saying that since both terms, notice terms are separated by pluses or minuses. That whole thing is a term. That whole thing is a term. Both terms have a blob in it, so I could factor out a blob, don't you think? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm going to have to keep the blob in parentheses because otherwise it just has to stay together, right? So I'm going to factor out the blob, but I'm going to put the blob actually in parentheses as I do it. Okay? So write this down in your notes. Make sure you got all this down.
Yeah.
This is really important.
Why do they call it a blob?
Well, nobody does. I do.
Oh.
Okay? It's not going to be in your math textbook, believe me. Right? They will call it.
If you don't have parentheses over the blob.
Okay, if you didn't, well, I'll show you in a second. So now I'm going to, just like before, you put what you're factoring out here, and then you put your parentheses, right? Just like you did before when you had, you factor out a 2. You put your 2 and then a parenthesis. All right, now what's left over when I take the blob out?
5x.
Right.
5x minus 2.
5x, right? So this crosses out, 5x, and then this crosses out, minus 2.
What?
Pretty easy, right? We
Yeah,
just
is that
factored
all?
out the blob.
Please tell me that's
I
all.
don't get that.
Do you get what I did?
I get it. Just
I
please
get
tell me
it.
that's
So,
all we have.
both terms, here's one term, here's another term, they both have a blob. So I'm going to factor out a blob. I'm going to take the blob that's in both of them, just like it had been an x, I'm going to put it here, and I'm going to, blob divided by blob is 1, right? So all I have left is 5x times 1, which is 5x, minus blob divided by blob is 1, so I have 2, right? Bullseye. Now in math, unfortunately, they don't always say blob. So you have to learn to identify a blob, okay? And a blob usually is a binomial. So here's another example that is more likely to be what you would see, okay? So we'll say 2x parenthesis x plus 1 minus 7 parenthesis x plus 1. Now, it's up to you to see the blob.
I think the blob is the x plus 1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
that's the
so.
blob.
Yeah. They
Blob
both
confirmed.
and notice the blob is in parentheses, right? That's why I call it a blob, because it's more than one term. You've got an x and then a 1, and it's separated by a plus sign. That's one term. That's a second term. That is called a binomial. Binomial, bi meaning 2. It has 2 numbers. Nomial means numbers, 2 numbers, right? So I call blobs, I call binomials sometimes blobs, because you just have to think of it as a blob. It's just x plus 1 blob, right? So what could I factor out of each term?
You could cross out the blobs.
Right. So I could factor out my blob, which is x plus 1. So parenthesis x plus 1, parenthesis, and then parenthesis. Now, what can I take? What?
2x minus 7.
Yes. So I just have the 2x minus the 7. Pretty easy, right?
Yes. Is
All right.
that all?
That's all there is to this.
Yes.
right? We'll do one more just to make sure you guys have it. 3. All right. So what if I did 4x cubed parenthesis x squared minus 2 plus x parenthesis x squared minus 2.
Okay, factor the blob.
Okay,
Cross out
factor out my
blobs.
blob. This is my blob, right? They're the
X
same thing.
squared minus
So I do my x squared minus 2, and then I put my next parenthesis, and what do I do now?
Okay, then you're going to write another parentheses, 4x squared plus x.
4x cubed
Cubed, I mean.
plus x. Beautiful.
Why did I write
And we're done. That's all you can do.
Yay.
Does that make sense?
Yay.
You see the process? Now, somebody asked, why do you have to have the blob in parentheses? Because this blob is multiplying times the 5x. That means everything in the blob is multiplying times the 5x. So when I pull the blob out, if I got rid of this parenthesis, look at this. If I got rid of this parenthesis, the only thing that's multiplying times this is the b. Right? Because the b is next to the parentheses.
Right.
You have the blah, right? But not without the b. You got the blah that's not being multiplied times all this, but the b is. So that means I'm not multiplying the entire blob times something, or I'm not factoring out the entire blob from everything. Does that make sense? You've got to have those parentheses. Very important. If I took the parentheses off this, that would be a totally different problem. It'd just be x plus 1 times this. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? That parenthesis is really important. Yes?
So in the column, the blob is included with.
In the problem, yeah, the kind of problems you'll get, I think on the homework you get one like this, just to practice, and then you get, most of them are like these. Okay? And you will see the blobs, right? They're pretty easy, right? Clearly. So the homework tonight is going to be practicing factoring at the greatest common factor like last night's. And I'm going to let you guys work on it right now in class so that I can go around and make sure that we identify those problems. And then the second side of the page is a bunch of these, okay? And so it should be pretty easy. So very quick lecture, but anyways, factoring out the blob.